All right, well, welcome everybody. I'm John Boquette, an associate editor here at the Newtown Bee. Welcome to part 5 of our Friday Forums series. In some ways, this forum today, which is going to be on the short side, is probably about the most important one that we've presented, because it really is directed to all of the voters out there who are going to be casting ballots in Newtown on election day. And as I like to kind of not so jokingly refer to my guests today, they are sort of the lug nuts on the wheels of democracy, because we are featuring our 2 registrars of voters here in Newtown today. Republican Registrar Erica Canfield and Democratic Registrar LeReine Frampton are with us today. So welcome to all of you, and thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Having us.
So let's start with a review of the hours and polling locations, and go through the boilerplate of what people need to know. If they haven't yet or don't plan to cast an absentee ballot, they're going to show up to vote on election day. Take it away. Go ahead, LeReine.
Okay. Polls are open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., the same as usual. They are the 3 polling places. We have Newtown Middle School for Districts 1 and 1-5, Reed Intermediate School for Districts 2 and 3-2. We have Hedham Meadow School for Districts 3-1 and 3-5, the same as usual. You can go to the voter lookup on the ct.gov if you're not sure where you go to vote, and that's where you're going to go.
Excellent. You guys know I know the answers to a lot of these questions already, but I need to act like I don't as the proper prompting. So
yeah, I know.
So Erica, you're a little bit newer to the game than LeReine is, but you've been around the registrar's office a lot. Tell us a little bit about your view of all of these coworkers and volunteers and poll workers that you've had a chance to meet and work with, who are going to be heading back in a much more intense and riskier situation on this election day.
Well, some of our normal workers that we've used over the years, some of them we haven't been able to use this year due to COVID, but we fortunately have gotten, I'd say, hundreds, LeReine, of volunteers stepping up, emails, phone calls constantly. I've even gotten 3 today from people who want to work the polls. Some of them want to volunteer, but it's been hard to meet them. As you know, with COVID, we can't necessarily meet everybody. But we did have a Zoom meet with them, or a Google meet with them a couple nights ago, and we got to meet a lot of them, and we've had a lot of correspondence back and forth. So LeReine and I have faith that a lot of the people that are working the polls know what we expect of them and know how to do a good job and to carry it out professionally and successfully.
So LeReine, given the fact that you have a proportion of newcomers, is it going to be a situation where whenever possible you can have new folks kind of sitting beside or stationed with veteran poll workers and experienced folks from town?
We actually didn't have enough experienced folks to do that. So what we did, because the biggest part of hardest part about this is the checker section, actually. And that's where there's a lot of the rules and stuff. So what we ended up doing, because each polling place had 1, possibly 2 experienced people in that we could put there. So what we did was we had a head checker, because we got extra money to have from grants in order to cover extra workers. We had our experienced person is now a head checker, and they're going to be behind the checker so that they're there to answer the questions instead of calling the moderators over all the time, which would slow down the lines. So this way we'll have an assurance of accuracy by the checkers, as well as the speediness we need to get all the voters through.
So this will be probably the first of several times in the next few minutes I prompt you to remind folks who may be viewing this or hear from folks who viewed it to just really go above and beyond the call to be kind and patient when they are arriving at the polls, due to the fact that the COVID situation has kind of reduced the proportion of experienced poll workers.
We also have to keep in mind that these poll workers had to start at 5 in the morning. They'll be lucky if they're out by 9:30 at night, and they have to wear those masks all day long. So, you know, it's asking a lot of people to do that. And I really do hope that people are kind to them, and wearing that mask in there to go vote for the 10 minutes you're going to be in there isn't a lot to ask.
Erica, any addendum to that?
Oh no, I'm with it. There, I agree with what she said. There's people. I would just make sure that you give yourself some time to vote. Don't rush it. Give yourself a little bit of time, and just know that everyone's doing their best. And with the mask thing is definitely the fact that they're going to be wearing it all day. You know what I mean? And it's a very long day.
Yeah.
They're just doing their best. So just be patient, be nice. They're doing their job. And remember, these people, I mean, a lot of them have never worked for us before. So, they reached out to do this to help the town. So very appreciated.
Earlier this week, Secretary of the State Susan Bysowitz had the first of what I'm sure are going to be several press conferences immediate to Election Day. But one of the emerging points that came out of that was the traditionally across Connecticut, I guess the busiest times at the polling places are just after it opens in the morning. People want to get in and get it out of the way before they get to work, or just before the polls close. Is that the same kind of pattern that we see, this high and then low for the whole day, and then another peak at the end?
I think that lunchtime gets a little bit of a spike, and I think that dinner time, after everyone gets out of work, I don't see people. I mean, there are some people rushing in at the end before we close, but we've never had to. I mean, at least since I've been doing, LeReine's got a lot more experience than me. But
yeah, once in a while, I see a couple of people shut out who just get to the door too late. But LeReine, so if you're advising people to maybe target low turnout times, when should people show up at the polls and hopefully enjoy at least a little bit shorter of a wait or a quicker transition in and out of the room?
I could tell people to come between 9 and 11 in the morning, between 1 and 3:30 in the afternoon. But things are different right now. You have people working from home where they weren't before.
Good point.
So they're going to come at a different time of day as well. So I don't want people to get upset with us when they go at what normally is an off time and it's packed because of people trying to avoid that. Because there's a lot of people that still are not commuting to work. Many in Newtown are working from home.
Okay.
So I really don't know what to expect on that day.
So anybody who gets there should expect to just, budget extra time.
Right. And if the line appears to be extremely long, remember their social distancing as well.
Very good. Yeah, and we'll cover that again. So next subject, starting at the top, there has been early on the suggestion, which has now been kind of walked back a little bit, that people should file an absentee ballot and then show up at the polls to make sure that their vote gets counted. What do you have to say about folks who think they need to show up at the polls who have already cast an absentee ballot?
There's a way to check and see if your ballot has been accepted into the town clerk's office. So I don't really think there's a need to go into the polls to do that. But LeReine?
If somebody shows, well, I know, once again, I know the punchline of the joke already, sadly, but if people show up at the polls and they say, I want to make sure I voted, and they either tell you or have and don't tell you that they cast an absentee ballot, what type of check or balance is there to throw the stop sign up to the poll workers on election day if an absentee ballot has already been cast and accepted?
The absentee ballots that are accepted have a red A next to the person's name. And I want to remind people that the only time you can enter the polling place is when you're going to vote. If you've already voted, you cannot vote a second time. So you're actually breaking the law going into the polling place when you've already voted.
Great. What do you want people to know about these polling place observers or monitors that are being called to show up there, or other non-voting officials inside the polling location?
They're not going to be there. They're not allowed in Connecticut.
Okay. It's easy and simple. I also saw a couple posts on social networks this morning about wonder if I could wear my vote for this candidate face mask, or some sort of fashion or advocacy accessory or shirt or something. What is the ruling on that?
No political clothing is allowed in the polling place. It can't have the candidate's name or likeness on anything you're wearing. Mask, hat, nothing.
So
Sure.
you would ask someone wearing a mask with a political message to switch it off to a mask that you will be able to provide to them?
Yes.
Very good.
We actually have a table at the beginning that we don't usually have, and they're going to be screening for masks. They're going to be helping people that aren't sure where they're supposed to go. They'll have a list so that they can direct people to the right districts or the right lines in the polling place. They will have sanitizer. They will have spare masks. And if people need curbside, they'll help them with that. And there's also going to be all the signage out in that area so that once you get into the polls, it's not going to take as long.
Great.
And if they're going to remind people also to get their license out if that's the ID they're using, because if your ID is out and you don't take 5 minutes to find it, and when you finally get in line, then the lines will also move faster.
So people absolutely have to have a photo ID in order to vote on election day, and they have to show it?
No, they have to have an ID. An ID in Connecticut requires a pre-printed name, and then you have to have one of the following: either a picture or a signature or a correct address.
Excellent. Thank you. So you started talking a little bit about signage and things that people should encounter when they come in the polls. Let's quickly walk them through the experience from when they drive up to when they exit the building in terms of traffic flow and the steps that they're going to need to take. You'll have signage outside now, which is something that has been more pronounced in the past couple of voting situations, right?
Yes.
For parking?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Once people make their way inside, it's going to be a single flow from entrance to checking in to voting to exit at each of the polling places?
Yeah, and we're going to have a couple workers out in the beginning of the entrance to make sure that that's actually the polling place that you belong in. A lot of people get confused due to the fact that we all vote at the middle school for the referendum in April. So a lot of people get confused on where they go for the people elections. So we're going to have them have the alpha list to tell them exactly where they're supposed to be before they enter, to not have people in buildings they don't belong in.
Okay, great. Then let's review the safety guidelines that you're both providing to the poll workers and anybody who has to encounter voters and members of the public, but also for for the public themselves. You will have face masks available if people need them, and an availability for folks to be able to vote outside if they don't want to go into the polling place because they don't want to wear a mask. How would that work?
That's called curbside voting.
Yep.
And if you have people that are handicapped, which is where curbside voting has been, we've had a few calls. There's like somebody called because they were on crutches and they wouldn't be able to stay in the line that long. They can get a curbside ballot. What they do is they'll just tell the people at that first table, and the two assistants, because that's one Democrat and one Republican, will go out. They'll get the ID, they'll go in, they'll get the ballot, they'll get a privacy sleeve and a pen if they want it. and they'll bring it out to the vehicle, and the person will vote. The ballot gets put back in the privacy sleeve, and then they walk it back in, and it gets put in the tabulator. Their vote is still secret because our privacy sleeves are actually manila folders, because privacy sleeves are $5 a piece, and we can get a box of 100 for $5.
Sure.
So we do use those. But when you go up to the machine, a little piece is sticking out before there's any writing, like where the name of the town is or something, and the machine will pull it from there by when you hold the manila folder next to it, it pulls it right through, so the ballot is not exposed. And so it still is a secret ballot.
Yeah, and there'll be a worker standing beside the machine to
and
make sure that all is happening efficiently.
Yes, and you'll still have the Democrat and Republican together. And we are offering that service to people that can't come in without a mask, or they just can't wear a mask. We're offering that same service. We're also offering, we know there are people that have children and they have no choice because they have no one to leave them with. And if that's the case, then we can do that. Of course, if there's two parents, they can take turns going in. But for those that don't have that option, we can do that too, because from past experience, many children tend to roam and touch everything. It's a natural thing. And in order to avoid that exposure, because while children may not appear to be sick, supposedly they're better carriers. And we're trying to do everything so that everyone is respected. We don't want to disenfranchise anyone, but we don't want to put anyone at risk, and we don't want anyone uncomfortable so they feel like they can't vote. It's a very gray line we're trying to walk, and we're just trying to keep everybody happy. And I know it's not going to work because you never make everybody happy.
Sure, but I remember my farthest memories going back as a child, back with the old mechanical machine.
Yep.
You know, my dad holding me up, letting me pull the handle or whatever. Yep. You know, going out to vote with your parents is a big thing for a lot of kids.
Right.
But there are a lot of situations right now, today, in October, November of 2020, where children are being more restricted from things pre-COVID. So hopefully everyone will understand that.
Right.
And I hope that.
And if they have to take them in for some reason or other, and they feel they have to go vote themselves, at least hold on to them, hold their hands, make sure that they don't wander, and explain to them beforehand that that's what it's doing. And there was one other important point that I keep meaning to mention. We have the plexiglass in front of all of our checkers. So we used to give our ID to the checker. You're going to have to hold your ID up to the plexiglass so that the checker can read it. And in order to check, and you can say your name too, but they have to still see that ID. So we're hoping more people use the driver's license, because that's going to be the easiest thing to see through the plexiglass, or like work IDs, things like that.
Good. And safety guide, there will be hand sanitizer available for poll workers as well as visitors.
Yeah, the poll workers are all given a little spray bottle for themselves, and we also have someone by the door that's going to have a spray bottle if someone wants it.
Well, I recall back in the primary, your directive was asking people if they could to bring their own marking device. Would you prefer people bring their own pens or markers to mark the ballots, or will you provide them?
They can bring their own if they feel that they would like to do that. We will have some. They just can't bring red.
Or pencils?
Pencils are okay too.
Pencils are okay.
Number 2.
Anything is okay except red ink. Right? Okay, super. Then we talked about providing the ballots outside. We did hear the governor at one of his press conferences earlier this week indicate that no one could preclude someone from voting if they didn't wear a mask. So in other words, people can uh, according to the governor's statement earlier in the week, they can refuse to wear a mask to cast a vote. Are those the people you're going to be trying to suggest in a friendly way to vote at curbside?
We're going to offer curbside to them if they choose to take it. And we also been advised, like, if there's a lot of people in the polling place, we just kind of wait until their area is clear so that they go in and less people are exposed.
Great.
So we're going to do the best we can with what we're offered.
Great. So we've gotten through the lead up and what to expect while going to the polls. So I guess we'll close with something you really can't completely accurately explain, but might have an idea about, and that is after the polls close and people getting results if they want them at the local regional level for the voting that's going to go on for the various legislative and Senate districts and things like that. What are you being prepared for, or what are you prepared for after the polls close in terms of actually counting and conveying the accurate ballot counts up the ladder so that they become official?
Well, I know LeReine, we've already sent out a few things to the committee chairs, letting them know to please email us instead of calling us, because the end of the night, our office is a little hectic, right, LeReine?
You might call it that.
Yeah. And we can send out results when we have them, but I know that there are also some runners that get numbers at the end of the night from each polling place, and absentee and EDR.
Are the tapes going to be read off as far as the official numbers of ballots cast at the polling places for anybody who wants to hear them?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So that process will remain the same?
Yes.
Okay, very good. And
I would like to add about the absentees and EDR.
Sure.
Okay. We have a plan.
As if that ever has mattered yet.
I know. Our plan is to be checking the ones off that come in on election day. Okay. We will be getting a list of the ones that came in before noon, and someone will go and verify that they haven't already voted there. And then those ballots will be added to the ones to be counted. And then at the end of the day, about 5 o'clock, we'll also have another list. So the ballots that come in, say between 5 and 8, the absentees, we won't be able to verify at the polls until after we get the books back. So those ballots will not be able to be opened until about 9 o'clock or so. We're going to process them all that day. We're not going to be doing further counting the next day. So the absentee count will not be there at 8 o'clock because we will still be counting later than that, so we can get all the ballots in the one day. We are foreseeing a close local race, and if we don't have the results accurately that day, we probably will get so many phone calls we won't be able to sleep until it's done.
Mm-hmm.
So our plan is to try to have all of our results. And we promise if we get emails, we will send out the results immediately. But every time someone calls to check to see if they have results yet, we have to stop. Our concentration is broken. And then we have to start back up again. So it prolongs the process.
And also to preserve the integrity and security. It's not a lot. It's not like you have, 20, 30 people in there. It's a fairly closed circle of folks that are involved in that crucial final step, right?
Right. And there's 4 of us in our office, and there would be room for like one person up in the little vestibule type of thing that we have. Mm-hmm. The rest of everybody would have to wait in the hall anyway and have to sit in social distance. you know, hey, if they're going to bring party food, they better bring enough for us too.
Okay.
I agree.
Well, that being said, we're pretty much have retired all of the questions that were developed on our end. In closing, is there anything else that we either haven't hit upon yet in terms of subject matter, or any final things that either of you or both of you want to say to folks that are viewing?
I would like to remind people to use voter lookup. That will tell you if you're registered to vote and where you go to vote. That our phones have been going crazy. We're here working at night and the phone is still ringing at 11 o'clock at night. Where do I go to vote? That will tell you. There's so much work to be done, and a lot of it is very, very detailed work. It's taking us a lot longer because there's so much interest in this election, which I truly appreciate, because I think everybody should vote every election. And there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of insecurities. If you have issues or anything, I'd rather have you send us an email so we could sit down and do a whole bunch of emails at once instead of the phone ringing all the time and you stop and you start. At least then we could choose it. They go to the town website, they can send us an email.
Well, about how many registered voters are there in Newtown?
There's over 19,000.
Yeah, over 19,000.
And how many absentee ballots, as far as you know, have been at least applied for?
Well, there's over 7,000 that have gone out, but we've received back over 6,000 the last I checked.
So the point I'm aiming at here is that, but you know, you could still potentially have somewhere north of 8,000 or 9,000 in-person voters, you know, in a perfect world voting scenario, right?
We usually get about a 90% turnout for a presidential election.
Right.
So we'll have a lot more than that.
Yeah. And in regards to the ballot, folks, in each of the legislative districts, the 112, the 2nd, and the 106th, their ballots will correspond to where they live. But every ballot will also include the registrars. And I know we made a point in our Newtown Bee article to remind people, but maybe they did not see that. We don't want them to spoil the ballot by voting for both of you.
Right. And another point to that, people think spoiled ballot means everything is no good. If you have already sent in an absentee and voted for both of us, all the rest of the votes that you made on your ballot will be counted. The only thing that's spoiled is the one race. So don't think you lost the rest of your vote.
Unless they vote for the Democrat and the Republican, say, who's running in one of the legislative districts.
Right. It's the race that they lose.
Each race gets spoiled.
Yes.
Not the
and
entire
the rest
ballot.
of it counts. Yes.
Okay, very good. And finally, every ballot will include one single advisory question.
Yes.
And that is on the addition of the residential inclusion on the Fairfield Hills master plan. And explanatory text around that is available at the polling place?
Yes.
Very good. Excellent.
There will be one on the wall. There has to be. It shows each of the ballots and it has the explanatory text.
Okay, very good. So for folks to use the voter lookup to find out whether they're registered, the party they're registered, and where they need to go to vote, that's at the Secretary of the State's website? And
I just do ct.gov and put it in the voter lookup, put voter lookup in the search bar.
Okay.
Some of the links keep going down, which is why I'm not, because we have it on our town website as well. But if the link goes down, it's just easier that way. We never said anything about election day registration.
Mm-hmm.
If someone is not registered, they can come to the municipal center during polling hours and register to vote and vote there. If they have to do that, they can go to the online registration, which is also at ct.gov. Just put in voter registration in the search bar, and they fill out all the information. They can't do it till election day because it's shut down right now.
Yep.
But if they do that, when they come into register, it's already in the computer and we just have to pull it up. It will save time on the lines at election day registration, and it will reduce the exposure.
And election day registration, again, is done at the registrar's office?
Well, in the hallway outside the registrar's
Okay,
office,
but
yes.
people should complete their information first going through the state of Connecticut site or the
Yes, that's
Secretary.
very helpful when they do that.
Great.
There will be computers here if they don't do it ahead of time.
And is that also linked on the registrars of voters page on the municipal site at newtown-ct.gov?
Yes, it's
Yes,
the
it says voter. It says voter registration.
Great, excellent. So you guys have all the mirrored resource links as the Secretary of State's site has the original, you know,
Right.
the destination links.
Right, they're all linked to there.
Excellent. Any other final points or reminders or requests of voters on election day?
Be patient and be kind.
Thank you for voting.
That's right.
Well, we'll leave it at that then, and a good way to leave it. Folks, we want to remind you once again, polls in Newtown are open 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And you can find out all the information you need by clicking the links either at the Newtown Registrar's site at newtown-ct.gov or go to ct.gov/SOTS and or use the search box at the ct.gov site for all the resources and information that you need to make your voting experience not only pleasant and easy, but quick and safe, which is what all we could hope for this election day, and that our registrars and all of the voting officials in town's work is done in an expedient fashion. Good luck to you guys, and thank you so much for taking all the time today to talk to Newtown residents about election day voting. Appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Thanks, John.